welcome you, Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Baragani to my Africana Studies colleagues, contemporaries, and friends, and seekers after the truth. Oh, and let me hasten on to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I have always found goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we are located, write it down, we are located at 8916 South Main Street in the city of Los Angeles, zip code 9003. And we're being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, of whom my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollandus, is the proud pastor. And if you're in the area, feel free to come and worship with us, because our doors are always open. All right. And this is a social justice. It started out as a social justice offering in 2017, I do believe it was December, and we have not veered from that. We've tried to improve our skills and improve our delivery and improve our broadcast, but our core mission is still social justice, regardless of what others may be doing. I'm going to ride that social justice train till they tell me to get off of it. Therefore, we try to stay away from the hoopalistic, even though all of us, I am a bona fide, born-again preacher of the gospel of Jesus the Christ. But when I do this offering, I try to, confine myself to the facts, and I really don't try to make the application, because the Spirit makes various applications according to as the need may be in the personal individual who is listening. But we do note the facts and the events that are going on not only in our neighborhoods and communities, but of course how they affect us the world over. We look at local, national, and international is what I'm saying in so many words. All right. Since we have a limited time, let us look at the scriptures that motivate us. The first will be in the Old Testament, the book of Proverbs, the 14th chapter and the 34th verse, which says, "Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin," mark that word, sin, "is a reproach." Mark that word, reproach, to any people. It's a reproach, therefore, is a scar. It's a disfigurement. It's a disgrace that has to be remedied. Sin is a reproach to any people. It is a blemish. It is a wrinkle. All of the deleterious declensions that follow from it are the synonyms to identify and define what the word reproach means in its original as well as its more contemporary meaning. Then the little book of Micah claims my attention next. Not that the other books do not contain social justice. If you're looking for social justice, the Old Testament is replete with social justice utterances and themes. God asking us to look after the poor, look after the widows, look after the fatherless, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. It's all there in the Old Testament. But this particular text in Micah 6 and 8 is a marching order. It's instructive. It reads, "He hath shown thee, O man, what is good. And what doth the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. I'm pushing this microphone back here a little bit. I hope I'm not booming too much. And to walk humbly with thy God. That's the little book of Micah 6 and 8. A very instructive scripture for those of us who are seeking, what am I supposed to do in life? He hath shown thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. All right? And then coming into the New Testament, let's stop by the house of Luke, the physician, and look at the 12th chapter, the first verse, the little last clause of that first verse, where Jesus is instructing his disciples, and this is what he says: beware the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And for you that are not cooks, leaven was something that the old cooks in the old economy kept, so that when whatever new dish they were preparing, they would put some old leaven in there so it could get some seasoning, get some flavoring in the food. All right? And Jesus is saying to his disciples, beware the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Don't become a hypocrite, in other words. And finally, in the book of Ephesians, the 6th chapter, and we're going to read verse 11, we're going to recite verses 11 and 12, although the entire book of the letter to the Ephesians is very instructive. But in the 6th chapter of Ephesians, in verses 11 and 12, it says, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. In the 12th verse, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So you can see from there that Paul is intent on the readers and the students of his letters to be vigilant and to be watchful and to be wise enough to know that no one person is responsible for all the ills of their government. Most of the ills in the government, especially our government, are systemic. That means they are baked in. That if the person that you're talking to about a loan or about getting something done is smiling and agreeing with you, they know in the back of their mind that the system is going to stop you, because that's the way institutionalized racism works. Someone was talking this week about the fact that the restricted covenants prohibited blacks from buying in Inglewood and many of the cities that we now call home. Back in the 1933s or even before then, that colored people, as we were called then, or Negroes, as we shortly became more comfortable being called colored or Negroes, were not allowed to come west of Main Street. We were on the east side of the divide. And Main Street was a dividing line. You dare not come west. You remember that old adage you saw in high school, said, go west, young man? That was not for colored people or Negroes. That was for the landed, as Thurgood Marshall called them, the free number of persons, which were all white persons. And so we were not included in that number, not even in the GI Bill, which was a federal program, yes, but it was to be administered locally by the local state officials. And so in Mississippi, there were no housing vouchers given to Negroes or colored people. however you may slice it, because of the how shall we put it, because of the societal norms of that which mitigated against doing anything for colored people or Negroes. You couldn't even go to the hospital if you were in an accident. The ambulance would not pick you up. A colored Negro ambulance would have to come out there and pick you up from the side of the road, which is what happened to in the case of Jesse Belvin. And of course, he and his wife were not the only one, but I was recently reading how they took her to the hospital, but the hospital wouldn't treat her because it was a white hospital, whites only hospital, and she languished for hours with no treatment. And you know, if you don't get treatment after an accident injury, you have a higher chance of mortality because you're not treated. They didn't treat, protect the wound or treat for shock or do any of those first aid things that you would think that a medical person would do. But I'm digressing because I'm going in another direction entirely. This week, which was week of Thanksgiving, the National Guard suffered their first tragedies. A female National Guard officer was killed, and our condolences to the members of her family. Remember, she wouldn't have been in harm's way if a certain president had not put the National Guard on high alert and put them on the streets of our cities. It says a 20-year-old Afghan man suspected of shooting 2 National Guard members came to the United States in September 2021 through a program known as Operation Allies Welcome. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said Wednesday night. The Biden administration developed the program in the wake of the Taliban's retaking of power in Afghanistan in August 2021. It allowed for the entry of certain vulnerable Afghan nationals into the United States on 2-year grants of parole, which did not confer any form of permanent immigration status. Instead, the Afghans were expected to apply for other means to stay in the country, such as asylum. And some of you remember the scenes, the clips of the big airplanes taking off, but yet they had human beings clinging on to the wings and of the airplane, but the airplane was moving down the runway, going to take off, and all of this crowd of people were being run over and pushed to the side, and those that were up on the wings, they didn't show you the final takeoff, because you know when the plane take off, whatever's up there is going to fall off on the ground. But that is what happened when Joe Biden withdrew from Afghanistan. And the people that they brought over here, for the most part, were people who had collaborated with the United States. And now that the United States was pulling out and the Taliban was taking over, the reprisals had already, and the revenge rather, had already begun. Much like what Donald Trump is doing in this country, going after Letitia James and going after James Comey for their prosecution, their lawful prosecution of him in the case of Letitia James, and in the case of James Comey had been FBI director, and he had run afoul of Monsieur Donald Trump. And so the Afghan nationals over here, this is the first time I'm hearing of them doing anything like this, but it plays right into Donald Trump's hands, because now he's saying that we're going to stop any immigration from poor countries. It's just his definition of poor. That includes Haiti and all of those Caribbean nations. And now Afghan. And even though we asked those people to help us to go in there and overthrow the Taliban, as it were, and now that we have lost the war in Afghanistan, as we had even prior to Joe Biden's becoming president, even under former president, even under former President Barack Obama, but the Afghan situation had festered, and finally Joe Biden, when he became president, said, "Okay, we're gonna pull out. We're gonna get out of there," and he did. It was an ugly getting out, and it left many hard feelings and hurt, ruffled feathers, but he got out. Some say he should have had a more orderly, but they should have done it under some other president before it got on Joe Biden's desk. All right. Now, second, the prosecutors in the case against Letitia James and in the case against James Comey, the prosecutor has been called out for being unqualified and being illegally in that position, according to the Judge Curry. This week, throughout the charges, throughout the case against Letitia James and against James Comey, based upon the fact that the person bringing the charges had not been elected by the Senate or the Congress, and the president could only appoint somebody for 120 days. After that, they would have to come before Congress, which Ms. Halligan did not. Let me read key points of the ruling of the judge's ruling. Unlawful appointment. Judge Curry concluded that Halligan's appointment violated laws that restrict the ability of the Department of Justice to install top prosecutors without proper confirmation, which is what I was saying. She stated, this is talking about the judge, all actions, everything Ms. Halligan has done, all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment constitute unlawful exercises of executive power and must be set aside. That's the judge's reasoning. All right, dismissal without prejudice. The judge dismissed the charges without prejudice, meaning that the Justice Department could potentially seek new indictments in the future. However, the statute of limitations for Mr. Comey's alleged offenses had expired, complicating any future prosecution. All right, and so the implications of the ruling without prejudice, that needs a definition. By stating without prejudice, that means that the Justice Department could bring the charges again in the future if they found some more evidence that they had not presented already. But what the lawyers for Mr. Comey and Ms. James wanted was the judge to dismiss the charges with prejudice, which would mean that the Justice Department could never bring those same charges against those poor people again. However, the judge did not dismiss without prejudice. Implications of the ruling. This ruling is seen as a significant rebuke of the Justice Department's efforts to pursue charges against political adversaries of the Trump administration. The judge emphasized that allowing such appointments without proper oversight could lead to abuse of power. I wonder who she was referencing in that statement. All right, now the background. Trump had fired Comey as head of the FBI in 2017 when he was overseeing an investigation into contacts between Trump's presidential campaign and Russian officials. James came into the president's crosshairs in 2022. I'm talking about Letitia James now. In the crosshairs in 2022 after she brought a landmark civil fraud case against him. The Trump Organization and his 3 adult children that led to a roughly $500 million penalty. Letitia James, on Monday said she was heartened by today's victory and remained fearless in the face of these baseless charges. Comey, in a video message, said he was grateful for the dismissal of a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. A message has been sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. Comey added, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt on Monday said that the Department of Justice would appeal the ruling. We believe the attorney in this case, Lindsay Halligan, is not only extremely qualified for this position, but she was, in fact, legally appointed. And I know the Department of Justice will be appealing this in a very short order. So maybe James Comey should pump the brakes on his victory lap, Leavitt said. Interim U.S. attorneys may serve for 120 days, after which they must be confirmed by a federal court or the Senate. Halligan replaced interim U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, who served in the role since January 21, 2025. The judge added all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing James's and Comey's indictments, constitute unlawful exercises of executive power and must be, that's an imperative right there, and must be set aside. Judge Curry has dismissed the cases without prejudice, meaning the prosecutors can potentially refile the charges. So there you have the background on that vindictive prosecution of New York State Attorney General Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. Remember, President Trump attempted to seize Mr. Comey's benefits, his pension, because Mr. Comey was a few months from retiring when he was fired, summarily fired by Donald Trump. And you know how those things work. It was done in the attempt, with the intent that he would be blocked from getting his pension and from getting his benefits. You know, you work for the government 40, 50 years, you got benefits, you got pension, and when you get down to the end, you need that pension and you need those benefits, especially if you're going to live in Washington, D.C. That's a very expensive place to live in. And Donald Trump was aware of that when he fired him. He knew the pain it would cause when he fired him. And as they're saying about what the result of and the consequences of the freezing of the SNAP benefits, well, it said the cruelty is the point. How much cruelty can you put on a person and make them say uncle, make them say ouch, make them conform to whatever you want them? It's other words, it's a form of extortion. However, in this case, it seems to have backfired on the Donald Trump, who is the titular head of the government of the United States of America. Notice I said titular. That means it could be that he's just up there in name only, but he has done his best to become a dictator, and he's still working to do by executive order what other presidents would not do. And so we have that sad realization, set of events that are now the realities in our country. So we have to, 5 minutes, amen. So we have to have much to pray about when we go to our prayers. Pray for our country, pray for our rulers, good and bad. Got to pray for everybody, especially all the 300,000 black women who were fired from the federal government, who lost their jobs, lost their benefits, who lost their pension, and because they were in their working years. And it is heartless for the Trump administration to demand that the people that he threw off a snap unlawfully, without any presentation that they had either tried to defraud the system or anything of that manner, that he now says that they must reapply. And yet he has fired 336,000 federal workers, and others are on furlough, which he says he's not going to call them back. And yet you want 42 million receivers of SNAP from the government to reapply, and you done fired all the people that would normally process those forms. How wicked can you get? And this is not the least of his chicanery, his malevolence. He's a very vindictive president, and he manifests that at every turn when he gets a chance. And so you and I must continue in our prayers. Remember, I said this was a social justice offering. I was trying not to be hoopalistic, but you gotta get over that way, you know. You start thinking about how the injustice that is being heaped upon the nation from the seat of power, and it is from the government that we look for our benefits and our help. And if the government is going to pull out of the job that they were put there to do, remember, for 2 months, the House of Representatives, which was elected by the people of their prospective states, did nothing for 2 months in this nation. I said I wasn't going to hoop. You know, but you can see the injustice, how it just rankles you to know that people that you voted to go up there and be in session to resolve the problem that you have, that they could handle from the federal level, because they send the money from the federal government down to the state government, and the state government send it down to the county government, and the county government send it down to the city governments, and you and I get it. And so, but when they're not even in session, because the head of the session, Mr. Mike Johnson from Louisiana, is a sycophant of the President of the United States, who is Donald Trump, then you can see how they have crippled and thrown, they didn't put their bodies, but they did the next best thing. They stopped the gears of the federal government from grinding. And so we are in a heck of a situation. As I close, and I'm out of here, if you're working on a job, thank God you're working on a job. But if not, they're not going to pay you. You need to take my advice, my seasoned advice, because no matter how hard you work, they're not going to appreciate it. And no matter how hard you work, you're going to fool around and get industrial injuries and carpal tunnel syndrome and all those things. You'll be wasted, you'll sacrifice your youth and your working years in a non appreciative environment. If they don't want to pay you, take my advice and don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. Love you. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.